Hey everybody. Hello, hello. Let's talk animals. Let's talk about our connection with animals. Let's connect with the Akashic Masters and see what they have to say today about our connection together. So I'm hoping I trust some people will come on and be watching this afterwards, I know for sure. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Sandy Rakowitz, One Heart Healing Center, and I'm here in San Luis Obispo, California, on the beautiful central coast of California. I see somebody's on. Hello, I don't know who it is, but hello. And yeah, so today, this pathway of the self, the soul, and source connections for you with your animals. And I'd love to hear from people. I see that people are hopping on. I'd love to hear from people in the comments, any touching, sweet, kind, beautiful stories about connection with you and your own animals. It could be with wild animals, with somebody else's animals, something that you've observed, something that you've experienced. I was in a group yesterday and it was so much fun. It was so beautiful. It was very touching to hear about stories. You hear a bell ringing. Cassia, that's Cassia. She's batting around her one of her toys with a bell in it. She hasn't played with this toy for quite some time, but she's ringing the bell. Yay, animal connections. Oh my gosh. Okay, very funny. Yeah, it was just beautiful to hear people's stories about these tender moments and beautiful experiences. I was sharing about my dog Haley, who has since passed away, how she used to greet everybody. She and Liza, my other dog, used to greet people at the car when they would come, clients would come to the house for sessions, and how Liza, the two of them would go along and bring them to the door, and then Liza would stay outside so she could stay observing, and her thing was overseeing everything. So she wanted to stay outside all the time, make sure everybody got to where they were going. That was her, in a playful, fun way. That was Liza. And then Haley, the peace-loving healer girl, would walk in on her three legs, you know, like hop, and escort everybody or people into the office, and she would usually come in and stay with us in the room while we were having a session, whether it was for them, unless it was a cat or a dog. And when it was for people, she would come and stay in the room. And usually she'd lie down, and occasionally, at times, she would come, somebody would have emotions coming up or brewing, and she would come up and sit next to them and put her nose right under the hand, so that that their hand was right on her nose. And so then they would inevitably start petting her. And she had the softest coat. She was a golden retriever mix with collie and shepherd, but the softness of her coat was like a golden retriever. And she had like a lot of sort of Heinz 57 dogs. She had a black and tan. She was black and tan. And she had a little peace symbol on her forehead that was black, that was super noticeable when she was a puppy. And as she got older, it was still very noticeable, especially if you look for it. It was really, really cool. And she was a symbol for peace. And so she asked me to tell people that, you know, you think that you're petting me to soothe me because you think I'm upset because you're upset. But really what she was doing is, I'm here to comfort you. She was okay. She was feeling good and fine. And, you know, the peace dog, she wanted to bring comfort and healing and soothing. And she was like, she's like the epitome of softness and comfort and peace. It was really beautiful. And, hey, Natalie, thank you. Or whoever did that. I don't know. I can't tell who's sending hearts, but thank you. I love it. I appreciate it. Haley appreciates it. And she, yeah, she's all about compassion. So if you have, that one I think was at Natalie. I thought I saw your face on there. They're little tiny little hearts, so it's really hard for me to see. But with big energy. So yeah, if you want to ask, what I thought I would do today, what came to me, what I thought and what the guides thought would be a good idea, is to ask them some questions about our connections with animals and like the larger purpose, or our roles, or things of that nature, and just see what the conversation brings forward with them. And of course, in the conversation, there's always healing energies that are coming. And I got a message from someone the other day, I forget which day. Anyway, the message is what was important, not the day. And she was saying that she had been watching last week's live stream about our connection with animals, and she was watching energy streaming in, and was talking about that. So it was just really, it's always really cool. Like, I don't see energy quite that way. I feel it. I can feel it. Like, I'm looking out and I'm not seeing it around me. A lot of people, many people, some people do see that visually. I will get sometimes internal mind pictures of things. And so, yeah, it was just really lovely to hear that, you know, that does really happen. I talk about it. I was talking about it in the moment as energy was moving and coming in. And I think she asked, what do I call it? I was like, streams of energy. That's what I call it. Sometimes there's pillars, you know, there's like pillars of energy knowledge that anchor things. And then there's also streams of energy that comes in, and from a variety of light sources. And so I'm learning right along with everybody else, you know. I go into it, I open into it, and then I learn. So we can all learn together from this and experience the healing benefits from it. So if you have some questions, put them in the chat. That's always helpful. Or if you have experiences about your animals, that will also help open up information, and so that it's not just coming from me. That engagement does make a difference. So I'm just going to breathe for a minute and settle in a little bit more. And I'm going to actually, I opened the records earlier, but I'm going to open them with you. Not you as individuals, but while you're here, or for those of you who are watching. And so as I'm going to do that, just find your breath. Bring your breath into your heart. Let that breath come all the way down into your body, all the way down into your center, and all the way down into the ground, into the earth, deep anchoring into the earth, into the safety of Gaia Earth. Letting those energies come up and through you and nourish you, and as these energies come in, they will naturally expand through the rest of your energy field and come into your body. The more you bring your conscious awareness to it, the more engagement with that and your conscious awareness. It brings it into conscious awareness more fully, and it engages and opens your energies more fully. God, Goddess, Divine, Lords of unconditional light, love, and healing, please help us to center fully in this moment as I create the sacred space. And as we create the sacred space, please wrap us in your light, in your love, with your protection, and allow us to travel to the highest realms of the Akasha available today, to be present within those energies and awareness, to allow the gifts and the healing to enter, giving permission for this to enter and to open into. Help us as we open our multi-dimensional hearts. We are naturally multi-dimensional beings. So we are claiming that by saying it, acknowledging it, open into our multi-dimensional hearts. Opening into divine light, into divine love, releasing all resistance. And as I said that, this big gust of wind came in. I can hear it sort of whistling through to help that energy, that collective energy, to move. And there it goes again, resistance. So the weather, the wind, the air, the elements are all creative forces, and here to be of support with us as well. Lords of the Akashic Record, please guide me into the deepest truth and guide us into our own deepest truths we can access now, supporting us in this healing and the releasing of that which no longer serves us on our true path. And we give great thanks, deep appreciations, gratitude for the love, for all the love. All love is divine, is part of divinity, and support on this journey. So we're just doing some clearing just from this opening. Yeah, so one of the things that's coming in to talk about is, and I may keep my eyes closed for some of this help me really focus while I'm speaking. And that is in childhood, there is a sense of innocence, a sense of wonder, or there can be wonder and awe. And very often, kids have a natural connection with animals. Not everybody, but that natural desire to reach out and stroke a dog, for instance, a natural desire to feel that softness of their coat, that animal body, that warmth is so palpable and so beautiful. And so what the guides are saying is to remember that within yourself, no matter what else has happened in your life, that you can tune in and tap into that place, whether you have animals with you or not. You can see wildlife around you, whether you're in a city or out in the country or someplace in between, where there are birds flying. There are, like in cities, is the picture they're showing me, like tall buildings. Even if you're in a city setting, there will be birds, there will be squirrels and and some wildlife that will be present. And you will see other people walking dogs primarily. Occasionally in some cities you'll see people riding horses. And certainly out in the country you have more availability, more readily, seeing animals are more readily available. But to take note, especially if you've lost an animal and you don't have anyone at this present time, or you're feeling lost, that the connection with those animal bodies, with the ways in which our heart softens when you watch a bird fly or land, or you watch a chipmunk or a squirrel move around, or a raccoon, or whoever it is that you're seeing out and about, or the salamanders or geckos or whatever they're called in your region, and to allow that softening, to give that permission for that connection with that youthful sense of wonder and awe, and the enthusiasm that comes, or that can come from those times of youth. And certainly watching animals, like baby animals. And so in the in North America, it's in many areas it's spring, the beginning of May, and so there's lots of babies being born. It's a natural time frame for animals to be born, and so even if you don't have any around you that you are seeing, you can easily go on the internet and look for videos of baby animals and connect in watching them. And if you like elephants, I follow a couple of different elephant sanctuaries. One is in Africa. They help orphaned baby elephants, and so you can watch them. It's really amazing. They're slurping with their bottles, and they're so social, and so the connection with the human caretakers, and you can read all about this amazing organization. And then two in Thailand. One is the Friends of Asian Elephants, which is where the hospital where I went a few years ago to work with the elephants with a few of my friends, colleagues, and they currently have a baby elephant there who is healthy and fine. The story was in Thai, so I didn't get the translation of the whole story, but there was a video last week that was just like so adorable. And then there's the elephant sanctuary farther north in Thailand, where the animals are in very open areas, and there is a baby that you can watch growing up week to week. And they actually do have a live stream. For me, it's like at 1 a.m., which I have done because it's an amazing place, and I needed a little bit more fix of plug-in with the elephants. But those are places that you can go. They're just watching baby elephants. They're hysterical. They are so funny. They are so playful and so agile and like flexible like anything. And they're learning how, they have these big trunks, and they're learning, like there's hundreds of muscles in their trunks, and they're like waving it all around because they, they're getting it to learn how to use it. It's hysterical. That must have looked really weird on camera. Sorry. So when I connect with animals, I will feel a physical connection, and that's what I was doing with this baby elephant. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I wanted to ask, so I'm just checking, I don't see any comments. So that was really fun because, you can, and when you talk about it, like what I was doing, I was feeling, this is what I teach people when I teach animal communication, like to feel through all of your senses. And so I was really getting a big dose. The more I talked about it, the more those energies opened. And so I was asking about some of the roles of animals in our lives, and so the examples of connecting with baby animals came through to talk with you about, and also the examples of the baby elephants, because they are such holders of wisdom and social connection, because that is that is just so much of what they hold. They have such a spiritual connection. I think all animals do, but there's a particular way that the elephants hold these things for us, and I think that's why people are so enamored, so taken with them. And honestly, before I went to Thailand, I liked elephants, but I wasn't like a big elephant person. Like people that I've met are, kind of like I am now. I'm like, oh my God, elephants this and elephants that, and paint them and connect with them. And I remember meeting talking with a woman before I left, not too long before I left, and she said that she had met an elephant, and it changed her life, and it was one of those pivotal experiences in her life. And I was like, well, this is going to be interesting. I wonder what that's going to look like for me. And truly, it was and continues to be really amazing. And so when I was asking the question, the question came to me about what do the animals hold for us, I was thinking I was going to get some of the larger, from a more spiritual perspective, and what like I had something else in mind, which is often what happens. You think you ask a question and you have an expectation of what that information is going to be like, and so these stories are what's coming through, so that and what the guides are saying is that they do indeed hold us. I'll read that in a second. They do indeed hold, each species holds very specific energies and information, just as humans do, in very varied ways. And they're saying that baby animals, the youth of animals, can show us so much about, help reach into us as humans, into that youthful innocence, where it's play for the sake of play, and yet they're saying that, of course, their play for each specific species, there are instincts and behaviors that are starting to be learned that they will be using later on in life. But they're saying that how good it is for us to watch like the shenanigans of play, and to really not just be a distant observer of it, but they're saying, okay, so they're giving you some instructions to let yourself open your senses to what does that feel like in your heart, what are the emotions, what just to really open your sensory experience. Listen to the sounds, watch the visuals, and to feel that for yourself in your body. That takes it to another level of experience. And in this day and age, especially with over a year of being, they're saying, the way that they're saying it, being more sequestered and disconnected from friends, family, and the outside world in visiting physically, and the ways in which you were all used to living prior to the virus outbreak. There's been even less emphasis on play, because the gravity of experiences has been so large, and so people have pulled in. And while you may have laughter and play in your home, there's been a weightiness and a heaviness to things, and people have a range of numbness, and there's still shock and tremendous grief and that heaviness. And so they're saying that the more we can bring this medicine, literally this is medicine for our hearts and our souls. So let me read. I'm curious about an animal perspective on end of life, especially in the experience of being euthanized. How do they, let me see. How do they, this is such a great question. It's so important. How do they feel about us making that choice for them, often with the intention to alleviate suffering? So many people in my circle grieve the responsibility they felt for having made that choice, and also about regrets for wishing they took better care. I have a feeling they view us with more compassion, yes, around these feelings of regret, and then we view ourselves. But I'm curious if there's a message they have to share. Yes, huge topic, really important. I'm just asking the guides about sharing some of my stories, because I have had many experiences around this, and I work with so many people around these specific things, and helping them to move through them in both animal communication sessions with an animal who is passed on. These specific things that you are saying, asking about, are at the top of a list of most frequently asked questions, worded, for themselves, but those are those questions. And also just in healing sessions, I have worked with people who have had those experiences buried from 50 years ago, right? Because such deep, profound pain, that decision of between life and death, that we have the capacity, that's allowed, that's given, that's part of veterinary medicine, is a huge piece. It's one of the most difficult decisions for people, and it's getting better, but it's not viewed widely through culture with the depth of understanding of the intensity of the emotions of having to do that, make those decisions. And so there's a tremendous amount of societal guilt. There's also guilt from within the veterinary community. I've worked with a lot of different vets, and I've worked with a lot of vets who are extraordinarily compassionate and understanding about this, and others earlier on in my work who didn't have the emotional capacity. I think that's changing more and more. The more of us that bring this out, and bring out end of life and senior care and hospice care, and the there's a vet, Ella Bittel, Bittel, who I've worked with quite a lot, that has an organization called Spirits in Transition, and it's specifically for pet hospice. And she's phenomenal. She's been really at the forefront of hospice, with true hospice, with animals. So let's get back to the questions at hand. Let me just see what so it's interesting, because the question I'm asking is to the Akashic Masters. When I'm in an animal communication session, or when I'm talking with any of my animals, I'm talking with the animals directly, the animal connected with a particular person. And so there's This will be very interesting. I actually haven't asked the Akashic Masters because I've spent so much time talking with animals about these topics and hearing their responses, and I'll talk about that afterwards. But so I'm curious. I'll learn also. Yeah. So what they're showing me is the vantage point is from a soul's perspective, rather than our human perspective. And so overall, what they're saying, animals are not in judgment. Our pets, they're talking about pets. Our pets are not, for the most part, in judgment about these decisions. There are attachments of various individual animals with the process, depending upon the person and their process, and meaning that, so they're prompting me to share this perspective from talking with hundreds, if not thousands, of animals about this process, and that is that they have their deep connection with their person. So most of the time, they will go with the person's decision. There are animals who will say, yes, I'm ready to go. But they will, and will kind of lead us through that process. Whether you know that that's happening or not, they will, and to help prepare you to be able to do that. And some will go quite suddenly, and often in talking with them afterwards, like with a number of animals who've gone suddenly, often what I hear from them is things like, this was what was needed at this time. Like either they needed to leave quickly to not draw the experience out. They would give a perspective of connection that would be different for the person than where they had, what they were previously experiencing. So that, like, leaving their body quickly would give them a jolt, and there are many times where there are accidents that happen, but that there are also often times where there's a consciousness around it, surprisingly enough, to us as humans. And in terms of guilt, I have not met an animal that I have worked with so far that has held the person in a place of judgment for their decisions, for their care, for their decisions or their care. They will usually they will always prompt the person into a deeper opening, a deeper capacity for connection, and continue that teaching and connection for those who, A, have set that up as a soul contract coming in, B, who are open to that possibility. Let me see, I'm not sure if I got all the answers. That I was just going with the place. Yeah, so my mind is not in as linear to read. It's interesting to read that much text. But if I didn't answer something, let me know. You can add in. Let me see if there's something else that wants to come through about any of that. I'm just rereading this part. I have a feeling that they view us, I think that means the animals, with more compassion around these feelings of regret absolutely, absolutely yes, than we view ourselves. And so yes, so that is the work. Like when I'm in sessions with people, that's the work that the animals have guided me to guide people through. Like I go, like I will get that information and kind of help that person bridge that gap to process what's needed to process and to be able to shift and open. And that happens all the time in sessions when I facilitate that. And I learned that being able to do that processing about decisions and stuff with the animals. And so a little over a year, I guess it's a year and a half ago now, my eldest horse passed away. And I know, Natalie, you were such a beautiful part of that after process, and before and after. And here's what I learned at that time. I was very attached. It was I valued wanting my horse to be able to go on his own. Like I had prayed about it. I had talks with him. I had talks with my friend communicators with him about it. And he started, the day that he passed, he was down. I knew it was, he was on his way out, that this was not a dress rehearsal, is what I have called the times when, the many times, and this, when he seemed like he was going, but then came back in. I knew that this was not that situation. It was clearer than clear. I knew it absolutely immediately when I received the phone call that he was down that morning. And I got there and I could see it in him. I could see him. And he was super quiet and super attentive. And a lot of his consciousness had already been leaving his body, but he was still very, very present. And the owner of the barn was there, and she later said it blew her away. Like, it was amazing to her to watch the two of us. And this is a person who's witnessed a lot of horses passing. It was amazing to watch me talking with him and his responses and our interaction while he was down, not moving except for his ears. Basically, really wasn't moving his legs or anything at that point. Like, I was talking with him about different things, or animals, who was meeting him, who I saw was there, here or there with him, waiting for him, helping him. Like, it was processing those places for both of us in our own ways. And at some point, he started to come back in and started to struggle because his body was simply not functioning anymore. And he couldn't get up. He was trying to get up. That impulse for horses, the instinct to get back on your feet, is like hundreds of times stronger than anything I'd ever seen before. And I've seen it with more than one horse. I've seen it with multiple horses. And I was doing everything I knew how to do, which is extensive and a lot. And I got at some point that we called the vet, and the vet came over, and I won't go through that whole, all of the process of it. But at one point, it became apparent, this particular vet, well, I guess I will share this. My sense was that if we had the right drugs to help keep him calm, he would fairly quickly be able to go on his own. But this particular vet wasn't of that thinking. And the vet that I knew I could speak with about that, to be a facilitator, with the person who was there, the vet who was there with me, was not available. Was trying for about 2 hours to contact her, and had somebody else trying to contact her for me. And so at some point I realized I gave permission to euthanize him. And I sobbed, and I went through lots of, like, deep process, because it was like a total rearranging of my insides to go with that reality. I hadn't realized how set I was in it, how attached I was to it until like that moment. And at one point he had moved quite a bit by that point. I was sitting behind him, his head and his neck, and I moved to the front of him, and he was lying on his right side, so his right eye was kind of down, not as easily visible, but I could see his left eye. And I put my hands on his head, and I looked, and I just paused, deep breathing, and I looked right into his eyes. And I was basically asking him, finding out that this was okay, and letting him know what we were doing. He knew, he was very aware of what we were doing, but I needed to say those things out loud. And I got a connection from my dad, as well as from Ibis. And I didn't know I was going to be talking about this. That's okay. So I'm just steadying myself because it's very emotional. So the previous year, about 10 months prior to that, my dad had passed away. And he had been on life support for about 5 or 6, 8 days, something like that. And we had a family meeting and all agreed that based on conversations that he and my mom had had together, to take him off of life support, that he had reached a point where he wasn't going to be able to come back from where he was, and not to keep him on that support system in that particular way. And obviously it was a deeply emotional decision and time. And he passed away the following day after taking him off of support. And so when I had my hands on Ibis's head and I was looking right into his eye, I saw, felt, and heard my dad, who said and showed me, it's just like what you did for me out of care and love. There is no difference here. There's no reason to think of this differently. And that was so helpful for me to hear and to see. Like, he showed me like visual pictures of like that disconnect, and his body being able to, of him being able to let go of his body at that point, and the freedom and release of that at that point. And that Ibis, there was no question for him. It was not an issue for him whatsoever. Like, it was like, it's just time, this is fine kind of feeling. And I just was like, okay, one last sense of steadiness from you, because I'd had him for 32 years. Long time of feeling that steadiness from the physical realm from him. And I got it. It just filled me, that sense of steadiness, and like total permission to let go. And I nodded to the vet, and I said, okay. And he had me sign papers that I've never had that before, but I guess in this day and age, you have to give written consent to do that, which I think is probably a good thing. It was just a weird thing in that setting, but had done that already. And I had somebody from another hospice doula with me, thank God. And she was amazing. And within moments of him getting another shot, because he had been given quite a lot of medication to keep him quiet for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, I don't remember. And within moments, he left his body completely, like just, that was it. There was not an ounce of struggle, not an ounce of resistance, not even a minute amount. And what he said, I can't remember if he said this to me right away or later, but that it allowed him to leave the wrapper of his body. And so I use that term, that phrasing all the time now, because he likes it because it's more lighthearted and it's very descriptive. And so that's a different perspective. So that changed my experience of euthanasia completely. Like any other, I have euthanized animals, but not me personally, but, dogs and cats who have been euthanized of mine. And I've had clients, this used to happen, I haven't had this happen for a long time, but I have had clients at the barn want me to be there with them while their animal has been euthanized. So I've done a lot of that also. And so overall, I was okay with euthanasia. I've watched super peaceful passages and been part of that process. But this was Ibis, and that wasn't going to be okay for me with Ibis. So it was just an interesting addendum for my own self, and how just how we attach into things, and the process that's so important for us of our emotions. And, I had people say to me things like, you really need to let him go, like a year, 2, 3 years before, like why, not people who knew me well would never say that, but, and it was because this is what I say to clients. And I feel very strongly about this with my own animals. And they taught me this is between you and your animal. It's not even between the vet and the animal. They're there of service, but you are the one who has the decisions to make. And it's important for you to find that place of peace inside of yourself with your decision, whether it's before, during, or afterwards. Because that's how our souls grow, that's how we evolve, and that's what's important for us in our path and in our relationship with those particular animals. Like I've had to go back, and there were experiences when I was younger, where I've had to go back and forgive myself and do, emotional work through different parts of guilt and, about how I was. But that's, what's helped me be where I am now. And as my mom has said, who's experienced many people's passings, not so much, not with animals, but with people, every death is different, and every experience is different. And that, she's watched herself grow through each of those experiences. I've witnessed that in her, and I can see that in myself, and that being able to find and navigate that way through that process. thanks for asking those questions, Natalie. I'm hesitating because I wanted to say how I know you, but I don't know if that's okay for you to be on things. So you're welcome. Thank you for, because I've been, it's been bubbling up in me to also be sharing this spring, late winter and into the spring, about these connections with our animals and end of life and senior care. It's such a near and dear area for me, and this process of euthanasia. I have a couple of, I have I taught a series of classes that I have on my website, onehearthealingcenter.com, about this process, the different story, like really beautiful, amazing stories, under pet hospice, under on my website, under the store, and there's a series, and there's 3 classes included in that bundle, and I highly recommend it. I created those classes when my dog Haley, here she is again today, interesting. Thank you, Hales. When my dog Haley was in the months prior to her passing. And so I was very much in that process. And she had cancer that I hadn't spoken about publicly up until that point, because I didn't want a lot of stuff around it from people. I needed to create our own kind of bubble. And because she was so connected with so many people, I might do it differently now, but at that point, anyway, and I have many stories. Of course, Ibis was still a youngster then, or much younger. Anyway, so they're very powerful. There's a lot of senior, elder animal, cat, dog, horse, holistic ways of care for elders and seniors and into hospice, and that whole process, prior, some of the things that happen when an animal slows down or what, it really gives a tremendous amount of information about the process and things to expect, things that, conversations to have with your vets, looking at pain medicine and what kinds of things you can ask for and so forth. So I highly recommend it. Anyway. So Natalie, Natalie and I met at locally here where we live in with Threshold Singers, which is part of our hospice organization here in SLO. It's a volunteer organization, and so we met through our singing and quickly found out that we had a mutual appreciation, love with animals, and I don't think we had known each other very long at that point when Ibis passed, and I made a phone call to Shannon, who was the director at the time. She's now the executive director of SLO Hospice, then was the director of volunteers, and asked her if there was anybody available from the doulas, because I'm also a hospice doula and also a Pet Peace of Mind volunteer with the same organization with Hospice SLO, and if there was anybody available to come. And so one of the doulas came and was like, dropped everything and was able to just come and be with me, which was an extraordinary thing. And then from the singers, Natalie came, and it was one of the most tender and beautiful things ever, to have her singing with us songs that I knew and that Ibis knew, and that the Threshold Singers had come to sing with Ibis and me and Zoe and some of the other horses at the barn a month prior. Normally we only sing with people, but we were in that process, and so I had that thought, wouldn't it be amazing to have them come and sing for Ibis? And it was such good medicine for our souls. And interestingly enough, the horse next door that was stabled next door to Zoe passed away we were singing to him and he absolutely adored it, loved it, was just like had been shut down prior, and like had his head hanging out and was just like like just like soaking it in so much. So we sang to him also. We sang to another horse, but this particular horse, Buttons, ended up passing away. He I don't remember how much later. It was the following spring or winter. Anyway, that was like, oh my God, Buttons, it was one of the horses that we sang to. It was just one of those wild, synchronistic things that happened. Talk about connections. There was another question in there, and then my battery is running low, and I've been on for an awfully long time today. Shenanigans of play are reminding me of the little bunnies in our backyard. How sweet. What energies and information do bunnies bring? Well, I think you got it. Oh my goodness. Let's see if we can find it's a great energy to move into from all of this. Let's see. You know, the first thing that I'm seeing is about like the dichotomy between fear and play, and you know, like bunnies are massively sensitive creatures, incredibly sensitive, and they, oh, interesting. So they do best, they thrive in an environment like all of us, but they have a particular way about this where they need a particular range of safety, and yeah, that feels like right now, like the sense of sensitivity and safety, and you know, having the right food around, and the freedom to move around. Those are the things that are coming to me right now. It's very interesting. I think that there's a lot more there, but those are like the key initial essence of things at the moment. So I'm going to leave with that because I'm getting a flashing sign for my phone battery also. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to close the records. Thank you, dear Lords, Masters, and Teachers of the Akashic Record, for the unconditional love, for the wisdom, the information, and the healing that we've received today. Please help us to return fully to our complete human wholeness, and with our animals also, in all dimensions, times, and planes. Please help us to integrate the information and healing received with ease and with grace. And I ask that you close and lock the records of this live love stream about our connections with animals, and the special places they hold in our hearts, and the decisions that we make and how we can be with them. So thank you so much. Mwah. See you next time.